The biggest question of the year. Is Alibaba, are all Chinese securities that release public financial statements, are they all one big accounting fraud, or can you actually trust the numbers? Let's see. In this video, we're going to talk about Alibaba, which is one of the stocks that I have invested in personally. And we're going to see if you can trust the numbers, because there has been a lot of hoopla, a lot of drama about Chinese stocks and about possible delisting from U.S. stock exchanges, which is very, very, very bad. Let's go look at some of the more recent developments. So, we have the PCAOB, the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, the Securities Exchange Commission, and the chair, Gary Gensler. All of them are involved in inspections of the audit firms based in Hong Kong that have done audits of financial statements for large Chinese corporations such as Alibaba. Because what the PCAOB in the United States does is it basically audits the auditors. The PCAOB makes sure that registered public accounting firms are actually performing correct and substantive audits of large publicly traded corporations. And the concern of the PCAOB and the SEC and the U.S. government is that the Chinese authorities are not allowing U.S. inspectors to actually look at the work papers and actually analyze whether Chinese companies are reporting correct numbers and whether the auditors of those companies are actually performing those audits according to the standards. So, there's been a lot of drama and there's been fears of possible delisting. Well, there was recently a little bit of, let's call it moving forward in this whole drama, because the Chinese authorities actually let U.S. auditor inspections, PCAOB, SEC employees, inspectors, go to Hong Kong and actually check the work papers and do inspections of the public accounting firms. And what is the result of this? Well, we have some preliminary announcements from the chair himself, or the intern that wrote this, Gary Gensler. Today, the PCAOB announced that it was able in 2022 to inspect and investigate completely issuer audit engagements of PCAOB registered public accounting firms headquartered in China and Hong Kong. This marks the first time that Chinese authorities allowed access for complete inspections and investigations meeting U.S. standards as required under the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. So it looks like we have pretty encouraging developments, because if there was material fraud and the Chinese were really worried about the SEC coming in, the PCAOB coming in and identifying horrible deficiencies in the work papers of the auditors inspecting companies like Alibaba, they probably wouldn't have let this happen in the first place. But the Chinese authorities actually let PCAOB inspectors come and check the work papers of Chinese auditing firms, which is a great development. Okay? That being said, a lot of work remains to protect investors and ensure ongoing compliance. First, the PCAOB must have continued access for complete inspections and investigations into 2023. So basically, while the first inspection went well, a big part of this letter is saying, you better let us continue to do this, China, because even though this first inspection went well, that's not going to be enough. We need continued and recurring access to be able to continue to make sure the public accounting firms in Hong Kong are actually doing proper inspections of Chinese and audits of Chinese publicly traded companies. Okay? Now, this whole letter is basically saying it was a success, but it needs to continue in the future. However, there's a concerning note here. This is very concerning, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my God. PCAOB inspectors identified numerous deficiencies at audit firms in China and Hong Kong, as has been the case in other jurisdictions in the first year of PCAOB inspection. The PCAOB is instructing audit firms to improve their quality control processes as well as remedy other issues. The PCAOB intends to release inspection reports in the first half of next year detailing findings from the inspections of these audit firms. Okay, so they found some deficiencies. And basically, whenever somebody comes and audits you or comes and inspects your work papers or inspects your work, people are always going to find deficiencies. But I don't read this as this was a complete disaster and they found such material issues with the work papers, the inspection papers, the audit papers of these public accounting firms in Hong Kong, that it basically makes all the financial statements of these large publicly traded Chinese stocks untrustworthy. Okay? So overall, this is encouraging news. So there's people out there, they've been, smashing on Alibaba and all these other stocks and, oh, you can't trust the numbers and the whole thing's a fraud. Number one, you're an idiot, okay? Alibaba is a real company. And while I'm sure there's fraud in every organization, including in Baba to some extent, I can tell you it sounds like it really wasn't that bad. Because how this works is these companies are audited by audit firms, public accounting firms in Hong Kong. The PCAOB comes in and makes sure those auditors are actually doing the work properly. And that's basically all you can do. What more do you need to, at least at some point, trust the numbers? I don't know what else to tell you, okay? This doesn't seem like a disaster to me. This seems like the Chinese authorities are willing to comply because they want their securities listed on the U.S. Stock Exchange so they can continue to generate capital inflows into their country to help expand their businesses, and they're going to hopefully work things out. But of course, there's lots of geopolitical tensions and blah, 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 blah. But this is an encouraging first step. So do I personally believe after reading this announcement that there's massive fraud in China? No, at least with the large corporations, I don't, okay? The PCAOB, had they found massive errors in the work papers, would have clearly said that. But they actually seem pretty conciliatory here. We identified numerous deficiencies, as has been the case in other jurisdictions. So it's not just China, right? That's kind of my thoughts. I'm not selling Alibaba because of this. I don't see massive fraud going on. This inspection is encouraging to me, but we'll see what happens. Cheers!